As an individual that is becoming more and more consumed by massive amounts of hate and discontent towards my fellow man, I'm finding that few things in this world surprise me or give me cause for pause. I am inherently skeptical of the goodness of mankind. I mean, with the amount of horse fuckery and shenanigan one sees coming out of Washington and the media these days, I'm surprised I haven't just decided to say, fuck it, grow a beard and live in the woods, making out with somebody's cousin in a backwater somewhere. But then I remember, I like watching Vikings, I like watching my Netflix, and I like my porn at high-speed internet. So, I just begrudgingly, stoically, I just move on. It's hard, but I try. Now, that being said, I did say that we were going to leave a particular country alone. I did say that. I lied. We're going right back to Japan. Okay? I got a few things that I need to cover. I have a couple old stories that need to be posted up here since I'm currently working on the new stuff. And you know what? I felt like, hey, it's a good time to put the old stories up here. So let's do that. So we're going to go back to Imperial Japan. But we're not going to go to a kamikaze. We're going to tell an actual, good narrative story this time. About a little thing called the Rape of Nanking. You might have heard about that one. So let's get started. In 1937, Imperial Japan decided that it was a great time to whip out its katana-shaped cock and fuck the Chinese coastline until it loved it and called it later for sushi and waffles. Now, the Chinese weren't into that. They weren't into short swords. And the Second Sino-Japanese War was initiated. Now, I'm not going to cover the whole war, as that would also ride into covering aspects of World War II. And that's a tale for another day and a better time when I'm not working 12-hour shifts 3 or 4 days in a row. But what we are going to cover is one of the most disturbing massacres of the war, and even show you that not all Nazis were terrible. Did you know that? Did you know not all Nazis are bad? I mean, I know you're sitting on your screen right now. You're probably reporting me to YouTube, spitting out your coffee. But you heard me correctly. So, put that coffee back in your mouth, you fucking pleb, because we're going to get on with it. Let's get one thing out the way. Imperial Japanese were some arrogant motherfuckers. While we won't go into the full history of the First or Second Sino-Japanese War, just know that the Japanese truly believed that the war with China would be a cakewalk. They hoped they would just slap them around like some hoes and they'd just come back to Tokyo to slam back booze and watch broads hump octopuses for fun at the local strip club within a few weeks. But unfortunately for them, the Chinese kept up with their tiger-style kung fu. And when Japan invaded Shanghai in August of 1937, all the judo chopping in Asia didn't save them from taking heavy losses by the determined Chinese forces. Even though Japanese forces took Shanghai by mid-November, troop morale hit a significant low, and headquarters also considered not pushing the war effort forward. But after realizing that they would probably have the seppuku for sucking at their fucking jobs, they sacked the hell up and they proceeded to march on Nanjing, China's capital at the time. Now, Chinese military leadership, named by Chiang Kai-shek, took one look at the horde of pissed off Pokemon masters coming up his road to Shanghai, and he immediately gave the strategic order to get the fuck out of town. He and his advisors felt that it would be more prudent to draw the Japanese deeper into mainland China and try to force Japan into a war of attrition off in the mountains and, other little shitty areas of China. Now, by the time the bigwigs in the Chinese government got out of Nanjing, the only people who were left were about 100,000 soldiers, a metric fuck ton of civilians who couldn't escape, and a small group of foreigners who formed a committee called the International Committee for the Nanjing Safety Zone. This group was led by a Nazi. Yep, a Nazi. Now, do note, hey, we're all about killing Nazis around here. But John Rabe, that was the guy's name. He was a good guy. He was affiliated with what turned out to be a craptacular party. But turns out this guy was actually solid. He was a German businessman, and he would try to use his Nazi Party status to save as many people as he could from what was about to happen. Now, Rabe, seeing the clusterfuck of a situation that was about to descend on Nanjing, sought a ceasefire for about 3 days. He wanted to get some of the civilians out of the city. Now, Chang decided to reply back with a fuck no. And of course, General Matsu of the Imperial Japanese Army retorted with the hell fucker, I don't know. He pretty much like, yeah, bro, ain't happening. These guys weren't having it. They didn't give a shit. So, but hey, you know what? You can't fault a Nazi for trying. On 10 December, General Matsu issued orders to attack Nanjing. The soldiers in the city held out under artillery bombardment until 12 December, when General Tang Shengzi finally shit his pants and called for a general retreat. Now, if you don't know, a retreat is not supposed to be a chaotic affair. I know that's how it looks in the movies. I know that's how it was in Monty Python when they got attacked by the rabbit. That's not how it's supposed to be. Troops usually would have a fallback area and they would try to evacuate as smoothly as possible. Now, apparently only 2 regiments got the memo on how to retreat properly because the rest of these morons just lost their shit. They proceeded to rob civilians of their clothes to blend in with them, leading to some being shot by their commanding officers for attempting to flee the battle. In practical terms, they went full retard at the worst possible moment and it just didn't pay off. Now, the Japanese entered the city on 13 December and proceeded to finish off any soldiers they came across. They allegedly even had a contest going between 2 Japanese officers, Tsuyoshi Noda and Toshiaki, here I go, best of Japanese again, Toshiaki Mukai, to see who would be the first to kill 100 people with a sword, like it was an achievement out of a Call of Duty game. Now, here's the thing. That wouldn't be that big of a deal if all these kills were against actual combatants, as that would be some old school warrior shit. Let's be honest, man. If you got a guy that drops his rifle, puts down his pistol, and he just decides to pull out his damn sword and run into a machine gun nest and chop up about 100 motherfuckers, bruh, that's some hardcore fucking anime shit right there. I'm sorry, that would get my fucking warrior dick hard on that one. That's good stuff. But I'm guessing most of these kills were probably from random civilians that they tied up to allow the Japanese to, quote, test their swords, which was something that they would do at the time. Eventually, these 2 lieutenants were brought up on war crime charges, and they claimed that they were just bullshitting their numbers. One guy only admitted to, killing 5 soldiers. But the court didn't buy it, and they executed him. So we'll never really know, what actually occurred with all that. I do recall, though, I don't think I put it here, that they did have a newspaper article with it where these guys were saying, like, man, I just killed like 95 motherfuckers. And they basically just find random people and chop them. Really, really, really big warrior spirit. Most honorable. Many civilians and some soldiers made their way to the Nanjing safety zone. And officially speaking, that was supposed to be an area where the Japanese could, they could leave in peace. Well, leave in peace? Why did I write it like this? Oh, leave them in peace. See, this is the thing about going through old stuff. And I know I'm taking a side from this. Whenever I go through my old stuff, thinking like, oh yeah, I'm a big brain, baby. I really wrote some good stuff. I always come across some errors that I did not catch running it through Grammarly, rereading it, all that stuff, and I write stuff like that, and it irks me because I never catch it until I get into this podcast type stuff, and that's where I catch it. The script is bad, and then you get that pressure, like, oh man, I sound fucking stupid, But fortunately, as I've said before, this is a history podcast for goons. I am a goon. I write this stuff for goons. I write this stuff for people who watch Netflix. So we're basically just clowning around here. So fuck it. So basically they were hoping that the Japanese would leave them in peace in the Nanjing safety zone. Now in reality, they only killed fewer civilians in the zone than they did outside of it. Remember how I mentioned the Japanese were really pissed off at the Chinese for being, for being so much trouble, for causing so much trouble during the attack. Well, prepare your virgin eyes, because you're about to see how far they're willing to go to take that rage. Over the next few weeks, 6 weeks approximately, eyewitness accounts will give testament to Japanese troops committing acts of murder, rape, looting, and general horsefuckery all over the city of Nanjing. Aside from diaries from John Rabe, military personnel, missionaries, and survival accounts of the incident, missionary John McGee got the massacre all on film, so most of this shit was recorded. Now, as one can probably tell from the title of this article, rape is a prominent feature during the Nanking massacres. The International Military Tribunal for the Far East approximated the total amount of women raped at around 20,000. And that children and elderly were also violated. Japanese soldiers would go wandering into the city, pulling women and girls from their homes and gang raping them repeatedly. The women would then be killed by conventional means, mutilations, or having their vaginas punctured and lacerated by swords, sharpened bamboo, bayonets, or whatever else the sick fucks could come up with. Obviously, this is YouTube. I'm not going to be posting those scenes on there. Again, go to my website, you'll find the story, you'll see the pictures I put up there. And even then, you really don't even have to do that. Just Google it up if you're that interested. Quote, a certain widow who lived just outside West Watergate had 3 daughters, aged 18, 13, and 9. All 3 girls were gang raped. The youngest girl died right there on the spot, while the other 2 girls lost consciousness. Since the bodies of most of these young girls were not yet fully developed, they were insufficient to satisfy the animal desires of the Japanese. Still, however, they would go ahead, tear open the girls' genitals, and take turns raping them. It was the 16th of December, and I was walking along the street. The black smoke still hung in the air, and the bright red flames continued to smolder. The corpses of my fellow countrymen were so numerous that it was frightening. So many female bodies were among the corpses, and 8 out of 10 had been stabbed in the stomach, their intestines strewn out onto the ground. There were even mothers lying next to their blood-smeared fetuses. The breasts of many of these women had been completely severed from their bodies, and if not cut off, their chests had been at least stabbed by a bayonet so that the blood and flesh were mixed in an indistinguishable mass. Surgeon Robert O. Wilson placed these statements in letters to his family. Quote, the slaughter of civilians is appalling. I could go on for pages telling of cases of rape and brutality almost beyond belief. 2 bayoneted corpses were the only survivors of 7 street cleaners who were sitting at their headquarters when Japanese soldiers came in without warning or reason and killed 5 of their number and wounded the 2 that found their way to the hospital. Let me recount some instances occurring in the last 2 days. Last night, the house of one of the Chinese staff members of the university was broken into, and 2 of the women, his relatives, were raped. 2 girls, about 16, were raped to death in front of the refugee camps in the university middle school, where there were about 8,000 people. The Japs came in 10 times last night, over the wall, stole food, clothing, and raped until they were satisfied. They bayoneted one little boy of 8 who had 5 bayonet wounds, including one that penetrated his stomach. A portion of omentum was outside the abdomen. I think he will live. End quote. In his diary, John Rabe basically let us know that the only music anyone heard at night in Nanjing was essentially the Rape Sloth death metal remix. If you remember what Rape Sloth is, feel free to look up that beat. I have it on this page, but I'm not putting it on YouTube. But in one of the houses in the narrow street, and this is a quote from Rabe, in one of the houses in the narrow street behind my garden wall, a woman was raped and then wounded in the neck with a bayonet. I managed to get an ambulance so we could take her to Kulo Hospital. Last night, up to 1,000 women and girls were said to have been raped, about 100 girls in Jinlong College alone. You heard nothing but rape. If husbands and brothers intervened, they were shot. What you hear and see on all sides is the brutality and bestiality of the Japanese soldiers. End quote. Let it be known that the Japanese were not above some old-fashioned conventional body stacking. Okay, it didn't just turn into a big penis fest around here. They were down for shooting motherfuckers, all day. Rabe noted that he would come across a corpse every 100 to 200 yards, often with bullets in their back. Afterwards, the Japanese would do a little casual looting and have a hot cup of coffee to relax after a long day of baiting any old people in the face for walking too slow. Because nobody gives a fuck about your arthritis, Mei-Ling. I got places to go. Get the fuck out of here. Now, the army would take groups of people to the area they would call the 10,000 Corpse Ditch. Very unique name, by the way. Very, very. I like that. It really tells the purpose of this place. It really. I mean, God, you just couldn't find a better name. And they proceed to execute them all and dump them in. But because, of course, they would. The kill count ranged from 4,000 to 20,000. The Japanese would get pretty creative with their murder, and they do things like blow people up with landmines, dump fuel on them, and then set them on fire. Mowing down 200 or 300 people in the morning with a machine gun was sweet music to the Imperial brass. And one missionary even stated that he observed the Japanese gut a Chinese man, cook the select organs, and eat them. Also, hey, did I mention they like practicing the sword swings on restrained individuals? Why? Well, because fuck you, that's how they roll. That's just what they did. They enjoyed it. But, well, then all that got boring. The cocksuckers got bored, and then they decided, you know what? We need you guys. All this shooting and cutting is getting bored. Let's go back to raping. So, they went ahead, walked around. That's exactly what they did. I mean, fucking hell. In Imperial Japan, it's hard not to drop little dick Napoleon jokes on you reading this kind of shit. And I'm gonna be honest, this and the other pieces coming up with Unit 731, I actually got a little angry kind of reading them. They're kind of fucked up. But, hey, I mean, there was that little two-hitter quitter we gave them in 1945, boy. So we're not gonna go too far into that. We'll just say they got their own back then. So anyway, more from John Rabe. Quote, on 13 December, about 30 soldiers came into a Chinese house at number 5, Singluku, in the southeastern part of Nanking and demanded entrance. The door was opened by a landlord, a Mohemian named Ha. A Mohabian? Oh. See, this is the other thing about reading guys' letters. Their way of going about their letters is totally different how we do stuff now, so it's kind of hard to keep up with it. Continuing. They killed him immediately with a revolver, and also Mrs. Ha, who knelt before them after Ha's death, begging them not to kill anyone else. Mrs. Ha asked them why they killed her husband and why they shot her. Mrs. Sia was dragged out from underneath the table in the guest hall where she had tried to hide with her 1-year-old baby. After being stripped and raped by one or more men, she was bayoneted in the chest and then had a bottle thrust into her vagina. The baby was killed with a bayonet. Some soldiers then went into the next room where Mrs. Sia's parents, aged 76 and 74, and her 2 daughters, aged 16 and 14, were. They were about to rape the girls when the grandmother tried to protect them. The soldiers killed her with a revolver. The grandfather grasped the body of his wife, and he was killed. The 2 girls were then stripped, the elder being raped by 2 or 3 men, the younger by 3. The older girl was stabbed afterwards, and a cane was rammed into her vagina. The younger girl was bayoneted also, but was spared the horrible treatment that had been meted out to her sisters and mother. The soldiers then bayoneted a sister between 7 and 8, who was also in the room. The last murders in the house were of Ha's 2 children, aged 4 and 2, respectively. The older was bayoneted, and the younger was split down through the head with a sword. End quote. Tang Dushon witnessed one of the mass killings conducted by Japanese troops. Hey, you know what? Maybe I should have put something earlier up here to tell you how dark this kind of stuff kind of gets. This is usually why I don't put these up on YouTube. These usually stay on the page. There wasn't much, and if you haven't noticed yet, I usually take a dark humor spin to this kind of stuff, but it's not a lot of room for dark humor with this one. It's just dark. It just gets that way. Continuing on. From Tang Juson. The seventh and last person in the first row was a pregnant woman. The soldier thought he might as well rape her before killing her, so he pulled her out of the group to a spot about 10 meters away. As he was trying to rape her, the woman resisted fiercely. The soldier abruptly stabbed her in the belly with a bayonet. She gave a final scream as her intestines spilled out, and the soldier stabbed the fetus with his umbilical cord, clearly visible, and tossed it aside. Now, eventually, after weeks of this bullshit, General Matsu kind of grew a guilty conscience and had a what the fuck are we doing moment. Quote, I now realize that we have unknowingly wrought a most grievous effect on this city. When I think of the feelings and sentiments of many of my Chinese friends, okay, Matsu, you don't have Chinese friends, come on, bro, who have fled from Nanking and of the future of the two countries. I feel like I want to read this in a southern accent. I cannot but feel depressed. I am very lonely, and I can never get in a mood to rejoice about this victory. I personally feel sorry for the tragedies to this people, but the army must continue until China repents. Now, in the winter, the season gives time to reflect. I offer my sympathies with deep emotions to 1 million innocent people. By the way, they popped that motherfucker's neck off during the war trials, if I recall correctly, so don't feel bad for old Matsu. Because I really honestly felt when I read that, I really felt like Matsu was bullshitting. So, anyway, that's real deep, Matsu. I mean, that would have been more helpful to feel that way early on. I don't know, maybe about day 3 or so. You know, when things hadn't gone into genocidal territory, but I'm sure the bras walking around with their dead fetuses hanging out of their guts really appreciate the sentiment. Ultimately, a puppet government was established in Nanjing and order was restored. Kind of. The Japanese would probably still engage in roughing up a peasant here and there, and maybe even the occasional murder, but most of the real fucked up stuff, diminished drastically. After Japan surrendered to the Allies at the end of World War II, war crime tribunals were held. Nanjing was brought to the forefront, and various heads of state and military brass were up on the chopping block, General Matsu included. Now, you would think that a man that claimed to feel so bad about the Chinese would own his mistake and die with samurai honor, right? What are you, fucking stupid? No. Fuck no. No, bro. No. That motherfucker pulled every trick in the book to try to save his damn head. He admitted to hearing about the crimes his troops were committing, then he changed his statement when he got put on the stand. He stated that he wasn't briefed on any of the issues of his forces. He basically he Zen masked the fuck out of this and said used the I don't know shit, your honor fucking defense. He also stated that he didn't have jurisdiction over his soldiers' actions, so I guess giving an order to stop raping everything that moves was too far over his fucking pay grade. Your honor, I mean, what you want me to say, man? I mean, I'm like a general and shit, man. I mean, I can't tell motherfuckers to stop raping. Come on, bro. I mean, that's like godlike power, man. I don't have that kind of power. It's not like I couldn't just shoot people in the head anytime I wanted, whenever they, I mean, what? Fucking shit show, dude. At the least, that would have covered his ass to a degree as a futile attempt to stop an army that could have been seen as going rogue against high command. But no, his defense was basically ignorance, incompetence, and blame shifting. I'll spare you the quotes from the tribunal and just say they didn't buy any of that crap he was selling, and they executed that motherfucker with a quick drop and a pop. So hang in there in hell, Matsu. So what about the safe zone leader, John Rabe? Surely his good deeds will go rewarded back in Germany, right? Fuck no. Fuck no. No good deed goes unpunished, bro. Rabe left Nanjing in 28 February 1938. He bought all his films and diaries of the incident back with him, and he started showing them off at lectures in Berlin. Now, at one point, he figured he'd hit Hitler up, because remember, this is during that time period, and around this time period, they hadn't quite gone to the whole, like, oh, kill the Jew. They haven't gone that route yet, at least not completely. And plus, Robbie's been in China the whole time. He doesn't know any damn better yet. So at some point, he figured he'd hit up Hitler and thought Hitler would be totally down for stopping further atrocities like this from happening. No. The Gestapo detained Rabe and they interrogated him. And if it wasn't for the people at his job, Siemens AG, I think that company is still around nowadays. Siemens, something like that. He probably would have rotted it out in some cell somewhere. The Gestapo took his film, but they let him keep the rest of it and they let him go. Now, when the war ended, Rabe was arrested by the Soviets and the British, apparently. Now remember, Rabe was he's a decent guy, but he was still affiliated with the Nazis. And as far as we were concerned, when the British and the Soviets and the US rolled up in that country, hey, doesn't matter how good you were a Nazi. Fuck that. So he still caught the same fire they all did when the Allies rolled in there. He was declared denazified by Britain in 1946. But by this point, he was living in poverty, and his family was left eating dry bread and seed soup. I have no idea what seed soup is, but it sounds fucking horrible. The people of Nanjing, however, they still remembered him, and they heard how shitty his life had become. So in 1948, they raised $2,000 for him, which is lots of money for those days. And the mayor in Nanjing came out to buy food for his family. They even sent him food packages every month. Which, not for nothing, that is some heartwarming stuff right there. I got no hate on that. That's good shit. Rabe died of a stroke in 1950. His tombstone was moved from Berlin to Nanjing in 1997. And it has a place of honor at the Nanking Massacre memorial site. The Massacre of Nanking is still a point of contention in Asia to this day. Now, the official death tolls ranged anywhere from 40,000 to 300,000. Now, this depends on what scholar or what country you're getting the figures from. Now, officially, Japan acknowledges that they may have overstepped a wee bit in terms of fighting in China. However, they don't seem to really be down with the 300,000 figure, and they tend to lean on smaller numbers. And what I mean by smaller is, they might chop that down in half, or you might have cats who just say, man, that shit didn't happen. I don't know what you're talking about. Nanking didn't happen. 0. Fuck you right in the pussy. China, on the other hand, is like, go fuck yourselves, and is all about maxing that number out, which is, hey, it is what it is. I mean, if you're the so-called agreed country, yeah, you're gonna go for maximum fucking numberage. So it's kind of a similar situation that you would get with, like, say, the Holocaust type thing, where you got the big number, you got the small number, which would be 0, and then you got, I guess you could probably say maybe the truth. Quote, the truth, who knows, somewhere in between. Numbers are numbers. Basically, as far as I'm concerned, something happened. Some motherfuckers died. Put it that way. That's the way I look at these kind of stories. Somebody died. So, it is what it is. But anyway, you have made it to the end of this story. And you are much more wiser and more screwed up in your head. I'm so proud of you, little Padawan. Congratulations. But I figured I'll put this up here. This is one of my oldest stories. these stories, and let me, if you managed to make it to this thing and I haven't completely offended you off my platform yet, understand something. My general thing is dark humor. Like, I work jobs that dark humor is kind of a necessity. You have to be able to laugh at things, and it's, it comes off kind of funny. It comes off kind of weird. It's like, this is the way you cope with stuff. Usually when I write, maybe less so obviously with this format, when I write, I kind of give it, like, when it's going to go really, really dark, I'll give you a warning. I'll be like, hey, not that dumb trigger warning bullshit. No, that's stupid. Don't ever come read my shit if you're worried about triggers. You're going to be triggered all day. Trigger majigger. That's what's going to happen. But I'll usually tell you, like, look, I don't really have much jokes for this. And the reason I tell the jokes is to try to soften it up a little bit. It's kind of like a court jester telling the king, hey, you just lost a massive battle and like 80% of your fucking dudes are dead. But you save money with Geico, bro. So there's that. It's just, shit like that. But these stories get dark. They do. But they need to be told. Most of the cats I write this stuff for, they work with me, or I see them around. They have never heard these stories before. They don't know what any of this stuff is. And I know some cats, they get on YouTube and they want to write, they want to do this stuff to make YouTube bucks and all this kind of stuff. No, I tell stories. If it ever came a day that I would make money off this kind of shit, hey, cool. I'd love to be able to quit my fucking 12-hour job and actually do something related, history related like this, and just, but who wouldn't? But for me, it's like, no, these are stories that should be told. Now, am I going to get them all right? No. It's like, I'm not a historian. I'm not going out here buying 15 books and researching all this stuff on one topic. Nah, fuck you, pay me. I don't get paid enough for that kind of shit. Going to have inaccuracies. It's going to have a lot of hyperbole from me. I'm trying to spice it up. Because let's be real, some stories, they're just inherently going to be dry unless you really do something with them. And I got to compete with Netflix for all my friends' times. But that's the way I do it. But like I said, you got this far with it. You learned something today. Go research this kind of stuff. Any story. Oh, damn. I'm sorry. I was burping and talking at the same time. It came out weird. Holy God. Any story that I put up here, anything you see me write, don't take my word on this shit. I'm not a teacher. Research this kind of stuff. If you read this stuff and this stuff's interesting, do your own research. Go deeper into it. Hell, I didn't know half that shit about the kamikaze stuff until I actually went ahead and looked at it. That should have been like a one-page tale. That should have been like, okay, and then these fucking guys, they went bonsai, they decide to face fuck a carrier with their dicks. Yeah, it's like, just, that's what it should have been. And it turned out to be something where I'm actually looking in Japanese culture and find out whole culture, saying all that kind of stuff like that. So, anyway, hopefully this makes up for the poor audio showing that I did yesterday. Hopefully, who knows? Maybe I'll put something up tomorrow. Maybe I'll put something up this weekend. I definitely, and here's the kicker. My main stock and trade when I first started doing this was pretty much crime dramas, stories, because while not giving away too much, I am very, very aware, very, very acquainted with crime. It's very interesting. So, that was my stock and trade. Like the war stuff, that's kind of the hobby stuff. But when we start talking about like, your little random killers, serial killers and all that kind of shit, that's usually that's my shit. You want to go about Al Capone and all that kind of stuff? That's me. I got that. So those things will be coming. But what I want to do for the next year, I've already laid out the topics. There's a few of them that I might bump up, and there's a few I might take out, but I at least want to try to get something like this up at least once or twice a month, at least when I have the time. But I don't know. We'll see. 2021's been a little... Well, 2020 sucked ass. And 2021... It's looking like it's going to be fucking great. It's going to be great, boy. It's going to be awesome. So, either way, thanks for listening. But, I know this isn't a big, colorful one today. This is mostly just audio. But thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging in there. And I hope this story doesn't make you want to go out and stab yourself in the face with a fork. It's kind of depressing. Don't worry about it, though. It's over. It's done. For now. Anyway, I'm out.